Liz, did you? Yes. When I read the Dan Harris book, he had this sort of horrendous experience with the retreat, and I wonder if you had gone through that much angst in your experience.
Yeah, so I'll give a bit of background for those people who haven't read it, but Dan Harris is I love Dan. He's done a tremendous contribution towards meditation and getting people to know more about it. But basically it all happened because he had been a war correspondent for ABC News, and he'd come back to America, and he really missed the adrenaline rush of being in a war zone. And he was doing Good Morning America at the time. He was reading the news, but he missed the rush. So he started taking cocaine, which was not terribly smart. And he had a panic attack live on Good Morning America. You can YouTube it. He's incredibly embarrassed about that, but you can YouTube it, and you can watch him having a meltdown on Good Morning America. And the producers sort of looked at him and said, Dan, are you okay? Anyway, they were very understanding, and they sort of said, okay, you need help. So he went off to go and get help, and he found out he had an anxiety disorder, and taking cocaine, if you have an anxiety disorder, it turns out is exactly the thing you shouldn't do. And he tried all these different things. He had tried therapy, he tried drugs, he tried all sorts of things, and then he found meditation. And that's already the book, is how he found meditation. But one of the things that happens in the book is he goes off on this retreat. Now, a retreat mostly involves going away to a monastery or to a facility that's set up for it, and you basically are in complete silence, meditating 15, 16 hours a day. You don't talk to anybody, you make no eye contact with anybody, you just meditate. And usually in a room with about 100 people, and then you all, at various meal times, you all go and eat. And it's the most freaking bizarre thing you've ever seen, because everybody's eating really slowly, because you're mindful eating. So you have to sort of... And nobody's allowed to make eye contact, and nobody's allowed to talk to each other. That alone can make you go completely bananas. Anyway, so he's on this retreat, and at some point, most people on retreat at some point completely freak out. Now, if you've been on retreat, you know, okay, at some point I'm going to freak out. And so you're kind of okay with that. And when you start to freak out, you go, okay, I'm freaking out. But if you've never done it before and you start to freak out, it can be a little hairy. Anyway, so Dan Harris, in his experience, completely freaks out. And so your question was, have I ever experienced anything like that? I would say absolutely. And I think, and this is one of the reasons why I tend to teach like entry-level meditation, because people don't tend to have psychotic breaks in entry-level meditation. And I say this sort of slightly flippantly, but when you start teaching the deep end, where you're teaching people about like transcendent experiences and how to elevate consciousness into different realms and stuff, or people go on retreat, people do have psychotic breaks. And I've seen other people do that, and I've come pretty close myself a couple of times. So I don't really teach that stuff. What I would say is, for most people, if you go on a retreat, you sort of want to have that kind of an experience. And the reason being that you're going in with your mind as it is. And your mind has all the patterns it has, and it has all the things it holds on to stay sane. And on a retreat, they take all those things away from you. So all you have is your mind, just thinking, thinking, thinking. I know you're supposed to be meditating and not thinking, but actually all that happens on a retreat is you're just stuck with your mind. And your mind is the only entertainment you have. You can't read books. You're not allowed to write anything. You just have your mind. And of course, your mind is so boring. I mean, I don't mean your mind. I mean, my mind is so boring. But when you just have your own thoughts with no distraction, no TV, no email, no phones, nobody to talk to, when you only have the conversation that's going on in here, it's mind-blowingly boring. And at some point, the mind just basically sort of explodes. Then when it explodes, it lets go. And that's when you get this ability to suddenly stop trying to control everything in your mind. And you just actually come out the other side, and you just sit in observation of reality without this part getting in the way. And it's almost as though we go through the world, looking at the world with glasses on, And through these glasses, which are our beliefs and our opinions and our upbringing and our likes and our dislikes, we only see the world through our programming. And on the other side of that psychotic break, you don't do that. Your mind gets out of the way. And then you just see reality literally as it is. And so a lot of times people want that tough experience because that's what we really want, is just to see reality. Now, I sort of always believed if you turned this bit off, life would be boring, it would be dull, there would be nothing there, there would be nothing to experience. The only way we experience the world is through our mind. But it turns out it's not true. All those religious mystics who were sort of saying, no, just if you can get out of the thinking part of your head, then there's something absolutely magical. The reason they go on retreat and have these horrible experiences is to come out the other side where you suddenly look at a tree. I know this is going to sound ridiculous, but you suddenly look at a tree and you think, holy shit, I've never seen a tree before. Because every time I looked at a tree, I just go, oh yeah, it's a tree. I know what a tree is. It's a tree. I know what that is. It's not interesting, it's not important, it doesn't threaten me, and it's not an opportunity. It's a tree. Next. Because we're looking for opportunities and we're looking for threats. Like, how can I get ahead? What do I need to avoid? That's generally how the mind is working. And when you stop that, you suddenly go, holy shit, reality is amazing. And there's a reason, it's probably not the right thing to say, but there's a reason people like drugs. And it is because some drugs turn this bit off. And then you get this glimpse of reality without the mind. And I'm not recommending, I'm just trying to sort of pull that analogy that one of the things, we actually sometimes like it when we shut this down and we're not tortured by our own thinking. And we get to see reality as it is, not how we think it is. And that's amazing. And that's why Dan Harris had that horrific experience and now tells everybody, but you should really meditate and you should really go on retreat.